Hello and welcome to Kel Knits. My name is Kelly and I am an Aussie knitter living in Sydney, Australia. And this is my YouTube channel where I chat all about my knitting. Before I get into the knitting stuff though, I do want to take a short moment to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Camaragal people who are the traditional owners of the land where I am filming this video today. And I would like to pay my respects to their elders, both past, present, future, and emerging. And I'm very much looking forward to being able to participate and vote in our upcoming referendum here in Australia to say yes to the voice to Parliament. But we're here to talk about knitting today, and the last couple of weeks I have gone a little bit cast on crazy. For me anyway, there have been a lot of cast ons. I usually only have maybe 2 or 3 projects on the go. I have quite a few at the moment, but that's okay. I was in the mood for it. I just wanted to cast on all the things, and I think when that's how you feel, you should go with it. Absolutely. But let's start with talking about though what I'm wearing. And this is a project I finished last year, and it's the Petal Party Crop by Samantha Guerin, and I put it on again today. It's really warm here this weekend in Sydney. We're having a unseasonably warm weekend, which does not make me feel excited about the coming summer. But when I put this top on, I remembered how much I really loved it, and it's made me think, maybe I should knit another one because it's a lovely pattern. And this is knit in Sandnes alpaca silk. And I do get a little bit of sensitivity to the alpaca. Right now it feels fine because I'm kind of indoors and it's not too warm in here. But I do remember from last year when I wore it on hot days, that's when the prickle factor really came out for me. So I think it would be nice to do this again in something, maybe I don't think I would do it in just a cotton, but maybe a cotton wool blend or something that's quite light but isn't going to have that irritation factor for me. And yeah, we'll see. As I said, I've cast on a lot of things. I have a lot of things I'd like to cast on, but this is a pattern I really enjoyed making. And I really quite enjoy the look of it and how it came out. So I can definitely recommend that if you're looking for summer patterns. Of course, many of you who are watching this live in the Northern Hemisphere and you are heading into a completely different time of year to me, but I definitely have spring and summer patterns on my mind at the moment. As well as lots of whips, I do have some kind of life stuff to chat about, and it's a little bit of a PSA, a little bit of a public service announcement-y thing as well. So I might start at the beginning and talk about it as well. I usually would leave it to the end, but what I will do as well, because it's health related and not everyone's interested, and that's cool. If you're just here for the knits, I will put the timestamp what you should skip ahead to if you don't want to be here for the knitting, for the health stuff, only for the knitting stuff. But I did want to mention I had a recent health scare, and it's kind of shook me up quite a bit. Everything's okay. Oh gosh, I didn't expect to suddenly get a little bit emotional talking about it, but you know, when things happen in our lives, it kind of makes us really think about everything, doesn't it? So in Australia, we have, I believe, the highest incidence of skin cancers in the world. Luckily, we also are, one of the best, if not the best in the world in terms of detection and treatment on all of those things. But one of the downsides of growing up in the very amazing summer sun, which we have here in Australia, is this risk of skin cancer. So I realized I have lots of freckles and small moles, and I've often pointed different ones out to doctors at different points and things. But since we've moved back to Australia, I really thought, no, I need to go and have a proper full body check. And that's what I did a couple of weeks ago. And I have one mole on my chest that I have mentioned to doctors before. I did mention it to my doctor in Germany, my house arts, and she thought we'll just keep an eye on it. But when I went to the dermatologist this time, she was concerned. Now, this is my little PSA part, there's like this A, B, C, D, E thing to look at a molt and to see if you think there's a problem with it. Whether it's, I'm looking down, I've got it written down so I get the proper public health stuff correct. We look at the asymmetry of it. Is the border irregular? It's not a nice round shape, it's like kind of a little bit irregular looking. Is there a little bit of color variation? It's not one consistent color across. D for the diameter. Mine wasn't so huge, but it was, it was larger than some of my other ones, but I think about 6 millimeters is when they say we should be looking at it. And the last one, is it evolving? Is it changing? It's funny, I didn't think this one that I had on my chest was evolving. It met some of those criteria. It wasn't totally round. The pigmentation was a little bit funny, but it wasn't too huge. It was probably 4 millimeters, 4 and 5, I don't know. I didn't think it had been really changing, but of course now I've gone back and like zoomed in on photos from a decade ago, and I can see that, yeah, it does look a bit smaller there. So it definitely was evolving. So the dermatologist I saw, actually I could have made a decision either way to check it, get a biopsy, get it cut out and get a biopsy, or wait and see. But I thought, no, I don't care, I'll have a little bit of scar, that's not the end of the world. Let's do the biopsy, get it out of there, and let's see what's in there. And it turns out it was a melanoma. So I'm feeling very relieved that I made that decision not to wait and see. Well, first, I'm very happy that I went and had my skin checked. I'm very happy that I made a decision not to wait and see, but to just get the biopsy done and have it checked. Because since then, I've had to go back and have what's called a wide local excision, which is why I have a little patch on my chest here, because I have about 17 stitches where they cut out about 5 millimeters all the way around it, get that wider tissue around, just to make sure that they have got all of the melanoma. Now mine is a melanoma in situ, and what that means, if you are looking at melanoma ratings from 1 to 4, 4 being the severest level, a melanoma in situ is level 0, which means it's totally within the confines of that mole. It hasn't spread anywhere. That's when you want to get it. That's when you want to get it out. Because really from now on, there should be nothing I should worry about this. It's going to be totally fine. It does mean I have a higher risk. I'm in that higher risk category of possibly getting them more in the future, and I'm going to need to have more regular checks. But to be fair, I don't have a family history of melanoma, but I do have a skin type that's fairly pale, quite freckly, lots of moles and spots, which means that I am just naturally more susceptible. And as I said, when I was speaking to the dermatologist and she asked me, did I grow up in Australia? And I said, yes. She said, did you ever burn to the point of blistering? And I said, of course I did. I was a child growing up here. I spent my summers at the beach with my friends, and no matter how many times my parents yelled at me to put on more sunscreen, to put on a hat, to put on a top, when you're a kid, you just you're out there having fun, and my friends were tanning and I never did. I just went red. So it's a little bit late to learn those early childhood lessons, although my daughter is hearing all about it now. But I will certainly be more vigilant in the future. And that's my PSA to all of you. It's not just for my friends in Australia, because melanoma and skin cancer incidences, I think, are on the rise globally. And so all around the world, we're at this risk. And it's just one of those things that we can do. If you have low risk, you only need to do it every couple of years to get our skin checked, because picking it up early, making sure there's no problem, if there is a problem, treating it really early means that we can get on with our lives without worrying about any of this. So that's been my little bit of a scare. I think, as I said, much as mine was the lowest level that it could have been, caught at nice and early, it has been on my body, I know, for over a decade. And the dermatologist, was pretty blunt in telling me, oh yeah, that would have gone to your brain. That would have been life-threatening. So I feel like I've had quite a near miss. And so in general, as I said, that's why I've probably been a little bit shaken up about it, but I'm very grateful for the medical professionals that I've been dealing with and the support of my family going through all of this. So I've got quite a few stitches here on my chest. They will come out in about a week or so. I'm going to have a lovely scar along here. But you know what? A scar, I have no issues at all about having a scar. I'm going to treat it as a regular reminder to me. I'm already pretty good at putting on sunscreen. You know, in my later years, I've become much more sensitive about looking after my skin. But it's going to be a very good reminder for me going forward. And it's a reminder for my daughter as well. I can talk in real practical terms with her about why it's so important to look after her skin now. Okay, that's enough of the health talk. Let's get on to talk about the knitting. And I've just realized I forgot to bring my finished objects. So I'm going to pause and go grab them and come back. So this video is definitely heavy on the whips. It's all about the whips today. But I do have a couple of small finished objects that I wanted to show you that I forgot because I surrounded myself by whips. But here I have them. And the first one, if you watch my last episode, you would have seen already because I have knit one of these already. And this is the Lullaby hat by Marzena Kolaczek. And I knit one way too small. And it's now been gifted to my niece, but it's actually gone to her baby brother, her 1-year-old brother, because that's how small it was. And it can then go into their play items for dolls and things, I think. But I managed to knit, and it's such a great, quick pattern to just whip up. So I knit the second one in no time at all for my daughter in We Are Knitters, the Petite wool colour pearl grey, and she wore this in her book week costume where she dressed up as a cork. So I will insert a little photo of her wearing it as well. I'll probably choose a photo that's not totally like the front of her, like a side photo. I don't know, I think I'm becoming more and more conscious about putting photos of my daughter on the internet and things like that. I don't mind on Instagram. I'm not super active on Instagram, but I'll often use stories because I'll post pictures that go on my Instagram as well as my Facebook, which is my private friends and family kind of group. And I like stories because you know that they're just there for a short time and then they're gone. Obviously, I guess maybe nothing's ever truly gone from the internet, but that feels a little bit less permanent. But yeah, I think I'll just put a little sideways picture on there for you of her because she looked super cute in her cork costume for book week. The second finished object I have for you was also for my daughter, and I finished her hot water bottle cover. This is a free pattern by Emily Bolduan, and I loved it, and I love the finished object, and she loves it too. Even though the weather's been getting warmer, she does not need a hot water bottle in her bed at nighttime anymore. She's still been insisting on having one, which is kind of fun. But I did, the other night, I did manage to convince her that she could keep the hot water bottle with her, but let's not put hot water in it. Otherwise, you're going to turn into a sweaty mess in bed. And she was okay with that. I think she just likes, she's got, as kids, she's 8 years old, always have all their little cuddle toys and bits and pieces snuggled in with them, and this has just become another one as well. But this is done with a whole lot of scraps. It was a great, quick, easy pattern and a great excuse to use up your DK 8-ply scraps as well. And I think, I don't even know what's in here. We have some, what is it called? Drops Extra Fine Merino. I think might be these three. This is the Di Rara Natura Unicy from which I used for my poet sweater. This kind of marred looking one is just 2 fingering together, and I just had a lot of fun putting this together, and I want to knit another one and use up more of my scraps, but I'll probably won't be doing that until next winter, I suppose. But I just love that it's really practical and yeah, good way to use up our scraps. So scrappy hot water bottle cover. those are all I have for my finished objects. So let's get cracking on the whips. The first one is my long-standing whip, which I have finished the body of my No Frills sweater by Petite Knit. And I've knit this in Knitting for Olive Merino, and then knitting in the colour Oatmeal, and then Knitting for Olive Silk Mohair in the colour Oat. And they make a beautiful fluffy colour together. They look really nice. Now, she does suggest that you have, this is meant to be a little bit oversized and have quite a bit of positive ease. I don't generally tend to knit with too much positive ease anyway, because sometimes, I don't know, for my body shape, too much body positive ease just looks like, it just doesn't look attractive, I suppose. So it's nice to make it, you know, with just a couple of inches rather than like getting up to, I don't know what she actually recommends, 10 inches positive ease or something like that. But now it fits. I'm happy with the fit. It's fine, but it virtually has no positive ease. And I'm going to be honest and say I considered not mentioning this on my video, but I have never professed to be an expert knitter. I make many mistakes. I'm sure we all do. And so I'm going to acknowledge a huge mistake that I made. I use Qiaogu needles and I swear by them. I love them. I don't want to use anything else. I'm not interested in using other needles. I just think they work really well. I love that red cord, that it doesn't get in the way, that it moves around the way I need it. I just think they're great. What I don't like about Qiaogu needles is how hard it is, virtually impossible at times, to actually read the size of the needle on the needle. It's terrible. And I have, like, my eyesight's pretty good. I'm very lucky. I don't wear glasses or anything at the moment. I'm sure as I get older in the future that will become a problem, but generally I have pretty good eyesight. And yet I am staring at these things, putting them closer, further away in different lights, trying to figure out what the size of the needle is. So I am blaming my mistake on the Qiaogu needles, which is why I got to the end of the whole body. No, not to the end. The end of the whole body, just before I was going to change my needles to do the ribbing, and was trying to switch my needles over and put the needles I'd used for the body away, and thought, this doesn't make sense. These are 4mm needles, but my 4mm needles are already here. Hang on a minute. I had a look, and I was using a US 4, not a 4mm needle. So that means I was using 3.5mm needles, I think. Oh my gosh. Now, I had been trying this on as I went, so I knew that it fit. I knew that I thought, oh, it's not as much ease as I expected, but that's okay. It still fits all right. It's not a problem. When I block it, I'll get a little bit more space. But gee, I felt like such an idiot having knit the entire thing just about in the wrong needle the whole time. So I have learnt my lesson. I will be extra careful in future, and I hope that I do get a little bit more give once I block this. Based on my swatch, I should do. That's why it's good to do a gauge swatch, because I know that my swatch grew a little bit when I blocked it, so it should be fine. And I'm not redoing this. It's mohair. There is no way I'm going to try and unravel this and redo it. It's going to be the way it is. If it doesn't fit, I'm either going to have to shrink or it's going to be gifted to someone. But I think it'll be okay. But that was my big stuff up. And to be honest, it's probably why once I finished the body, I kind of put it away for a little bit to think, I'm just feeling a bit cranky about that situation. I'm going to put it away for a little bit, but I might crack on and get one of the sleeves started. Maybe this afternoon or tonight when I get some knitting time, because I would like to be able to wear this before summer properly kicks in. It would be nice to have an opportunity to wear it at least once or twice. So that is my No Frills sweater by Petite Knit, and my recommendation to you, if you are using the wonderful Qiaogus or other needles that perhaps are similarly difficult to check the sizes on, to be extra careful. I think I do have one of those needle size ruler thingies that has the holes so that you can put your needle through to check what size it is. So I might need to use that with a bit more regularity. Okay, I have a pile of whips over here. I'm just looking to where do I go next, but I might try and go in order of cast on, which one I cast on first, which is probably this one, which is in my bucket bag from Stephen and Penelope that I bought because 2 West Knits knit along longs ago, I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the, I can't even remember which one it was called. And I even bought a kit from Stephen and Penelope, because I don't know, I felt like spending too much money, obviously. But it came with this bucket bag, and you know what? I regret nothing. I did clue 1 of that Cowl, that mystery knit along, and then gave up because it was all too hard and too much knitting and work for me. I used that yarn for to make another West Knits pattern, so that's fine. But I love this bucket bag. I use it all the time. So, so I regret nothing. And it is currently being used to hold my Pressed Flowers Cowl by Amy Christoffers, which is here. It's not very interesting yet, is it? Oh, did you see that shade? That's a big plane going over really close, which is unusual. Anyway, it's not very interesting because I've just knit this lovely bit and I haven't gotten to any flowers yet. And why haven't I done any flowers yet? It's because I had this part memorized, so it was really easy to pick up and just keep going. But now I have to look at the pattern to see what I do next, and I haven't been bothered to do that yet. So I had no intentions of knitting this. The Pressed Flowers pattern by Amy Christoffers has been really popular, and it came out, I think, first as a shawl, and I really loved the look of that shawl. I think she also has a cardigan and socks, and she has this cowl. I don't even know why I started looking at the cowl. In the Australian Knitters Discord group, they do have a knit along for any version of the Pressed Flowers pattern at the moment, but that wasn't even on my radar, to be honest, at the time. But I must have seen the project photos of the cowl and just became quite fixated on it. I loved the colors. I wanted to knit exactly, and I'll put a photo of what it looks like. I wanted to knit exactly that, in exactly those colors. But I also didn't want to buy any more yarn. So I thought, I've got a hot pink yarn I could use. So I'm just going to match it. I've got my hot pink, and this is linen quill, Purl Soho linen quill in the color Rhubarb Pink. What a great color. And I decided, instead of using a dark color, this is the one that I have in stash, which is also a linen quill in the color Wheat Flower. And so I'm using the pink will be my main color, and then the Wheat Flower will make the flowers, because I think when I looked through some of the other projects, I quite liked it when the lighter color was the flower color and so forth. So that's how I've decided to do it. This is a fingering weight yarn, so I'm holding it double. I did initially cast on holding it single, but it just, I don't know, it just didn't seem a bit flimsy. It was going to be small. I don't know. So I thought, no, I've got enough of this yarn. I had originally bought it to make the half and half triangles wrap, but I haven't cast that on yet. So too late. Oh well. And because I have another linen quill yarn, which I'm also using now for something else. So it's being repurposed into this. So I thought, no, I will hold it double. I've got plenty of yarn. I then also decided I'm just going to do the big version, because there is a small, a medium and large. And so I've decided that I'm just going to spend forever working on this and do the longer version, the large version. And because I had restarted it again after I originally knit it in single, I read some of the notes, how people had done it in other projects, and I decided to do an I-cord edging, which I'm really glad I did. I think it just looks lovely and neat. The other thing a lot of projects did other people did with theirs was did a provisional cast on, because as a cowl, obviously eventually I'm going to have to stitch it together, but I was just honestly too lazy to look up how to do a provisional cast on, so I didn't. Possibly I'll regret that later on, but I'm not too worried about it right now. So this is a project that is going to take me a while because, you know, I'm not in any rush, and I've decided to do the large version, so it's going to take a bit of time. The other reason why I wanted to cast it on is because I've been thinking more and more about doing colour work. I wouldn't mind attempting, I've never knit a colour work sweater, and I wouldn't mind attempting that. Now I realise that when I'm talking about a colour work yoke, we're usually talking about stranded colour work, and this is not stranded colour work. This, I understand, is mosaic knitting, where you're slipping stitches, so you're not using both colours at the same time. But it's still a good way to get more comfortable with using two colours on and off and so forth. So, and the mosaic just creates a beautiful effect really quite easily. So I'm really enjoying making this. I'm looking forward to getting cracking on the flowers, because that's when it's going to start to look quite impressive, I think. And yeah, that's my pressed flowers cowl. Okay. The one I cast on after that was this here, this one, which is the Coral Reef Scarf by Lisa Haynes. Oh dear. So I have done barely anything. I've started it. I've cast on. I've done the beginning. Looks nice. But yeah, there's a lot more to go. I cast this on. I did a video a couple of weeks ago where I've been looking at scarf patterns and was thinking about different scarf ideas, and this was the one that I knew I wanted to cast on kind of straight away. So almost as soon as I did that video, I cast on this. So it was one of those cast-ons where I thought, I've got a little bit, I had plans for other things. I already have things on the go, but I need this started. I want it on the needles. I want it ready to go. I know I will probably put it away for a while. It probably won't get much love, and I'm okay with that, but I just want it to be started. So I'm really happy that I did that. And I mean, this little section took no time at all to knit up. And so I'm sure that I feel like it's a pattern that once I do get into it, it'll probably move along fairly quickly. I'm knitting this in, let me see, I'm not very good at holding things up to if you can see it any closer, but let's give that a try. And I'm knitting this in Double Sunday Petite knit in the colour Kardemomme, which I assume is cardamom, which is really nice. I bought this to make a colour work sweater, but then I didn't like the look of the two colours together. So another yarn bought with different intentions being completely repurposed. Sorry, not sorry, very happy. I think it's going to look really nice in this scarf pattern. Then I cast on, I told you it's a lot of whips for me. For other people, I know it's not a lot, but for me, this was a lot of cast-ons. Next, I cast on, it's over here, in my beautiful bag by the Knitted Suitcase. I will link her project bags below because they are lovely. I cast on this. Ta-da! Doesn't look like anything, does it? It looks very long. This is the Coastland Shawl by Anniina Juuti, who is a Finnish designer and also has a great podcast. And I've been watching her knit this shawl on her knitting podcast for a while now, and I just really liked the look of it. I've always really liked I've watched the progress and I've really enjoyed it. I just checked this morning and she hasn't released the pattern yet, but I think she plans to release the pattern in the next month, fairly soon. But she was looking for more knitters, not to knit as a test knit, but I guess, is it more of a, I think I've heard people talk about it as like a preview knit, or, you know, so that there are a few more projects on there when she releases it, so that it's a bit more active and people can see the different colors that people have chosen and their experiences and so forth. And she knit hers in linen quill, which is why I knew I had another linen quill in my stash, which could be, again, repurposed. It's not really repurposed, it was just bought with a different intention. It could be used now for a different pattern. So this is Purl Soho linen quill in the color Rosewood Pink. So I think it's going to be lovely. The great thing about this shawl is that there are thousands of stitches on the needle. Okay, it's not thousands, but who minds a little bit of exaggeration? There are a lot of stitches to cast on. It's quite long rows back and forth. I feel like I've not done a reasonable amount of knitting on this and I have nothing to show for it yet. But what's going to happen is it's going to get smaller and smaller as I go, which I love the idea of that. And it's going to have on one end this beautiful kind of, I think, shell looking lace along the edge as well. But I will obviously put up a picture of Anniina as well so that you can see what it looks like. And she has no deadline on this. That's the other thing. I have done a few test knits and I quite enjoy doing a test knit, but I don't like the deadlines. I'm not good at them. It's too much pressure. So she doesn't have a deadline on this. She said she's quite happy. If it takes me months, it takes me months. But I would like to make sure that I fairly consistently at least work on this. So I'm getting progression every week. Even if it's not going to be getting all of my knitting time attention, I would like to just be knitting on it, fairly consistently, I think. And the reason why I won't be getting all of my knitting time is because I do have now another project. I am up to my last one. Yeah, I'm up to my last one, and it's not a whip yet. Actually, it's a swatch. But my mum asked me to knit something for her. She has an event on in December where she has to wear all white, and she has a sleeveless white dress, and she wants a little shrug or a bolero style thing just to go over the top to cover her arms a little bit. But because it's going to be in December, which is our summer, it needs to be fairly light and not going to be too warm or anything. So we had a look at some patterns, and I've bought this Lindy Chain fingering weight yarn from Knit Picks, which is 70% linen and 30% Prima cotton, and it's a lovely I said fingering weight, didn't I? And in the color Swan, so it's a nice white color. And we had a look at some patterns, and I thought this beautiful lacy Scarborough, what's it called? I've written it down. Scarborough Shrug by Pam Allen would look really lovely. And I have done the swatch, just trying to figure out which is the right way. I haven't blocked it yet, but here is the swatch. And so it will be this all over lace shrug. And I thought, yes, it's all over lace, but I enjoy knitting lace, and it's going to be quite repetitive, and it's not like a whole big garment, so it shouldn't take too long. But the swatch took me a long time. The problem I had with the lace is that I couldn't, it's not, obviously it's a repeat of a number of rows. It's a paid for pattern, so I can't go through it in too much detail, obviously. But it's not, often what you can do is you can put in markers within your lace so that you can really keep track to make sure that you've got the right number of stitches, that you're at the right point of the pattern, all of those things, and make sure you're doing the right thing. It doesn't work with this lace pattern, and even I got halfway through my first swatch and had to pull it out and start again because I made a mistake. And I thought, that's one thing, making a mistake in a swatch. If I'm doing this whole garment, I can't be pulling it out and starting from the beginning, and I'm not going to be able to just drop back and pick up stitches and fix. This is going to be more complicated to fix if I make a mistake, and I just don't want that level of stress in my life. So it looks beautiful. I'm sure it will be beautiful, but I have, what are we now? Mid-September. I have until December to get this done, so I have plenty of time, but yeah, I don't want to be trying to rush through a pattern, stressing over it, making mistakes, ripping back, all of that stuff. So I told my mum, I'm not sure that's going to be the right pattern for us, and she agreed. She didn't want me to stress out about it either. So I'm gonna have another little look. If you have any recommendations for think about like a summer beach vibes, little shrug bolero thing, let me know. That's something that I can use now fingering weight for, because I'm not buying new yarn. Let me know if you have any pattern recommendations, and I think I need to do a little bit more looking to see if I can find something as well. I'm sure it will be fine. I'm sure I'll figure out something, but when I do and when I get that started, I want to give a fair bit of time to knitting this, because it is on a bit of a deadline. Plenty of time, but all the same, I don't want to be stressing myself out at the end of November thinking, I'm not finished. So I would like to kind of get this done. So I think this pattern, once I decide what I'm doing, and my no frills are going to be getting a lot of my love at the moment, so I can get this one done, and my Coastland shawl is going to be my in-between, and then I'll pick up my other whips or cast on others. Who knows? I'm going to do whatever I feel like. What is it? Ruth from, what's Ruth's podcast called? I've forgotten. But what does she say? She says, it's my knitting and I'll cast on if I want to. And I think absolutely that is the best attitude ever. And that's what we're going to go with. Because sometimes I don't feel like casting on. Sometimes I'm like, I wish I just had something that was in the middle that I could just crack on with, because I don't feel like thinking about casting on and starting a new project. And sometimes that's where the excitement lies. So we're just going to go with it when we get to that. So those are all my finished objects and my whips. This is probably going to be a longer episode than I usually do. My episodes are usually pretty short, but I feel like I've been talking for ages. And I still have more to talk about, because I've been, the last few episodes I've enjoyed sharing a couple of new patterns that I've seen that I liked the look of. So I've continued to keep my eye out for a few things. And I have two that I thought I would mention today. The first one is called the Warp and Weft Raglan by Jessie Maid. And I think it looks great. Again, I think this is me looking at how can I do a bit of color work without really doing difficult color work, because she is using two colors. Two yarns, one is a solid color and one is a like, what do you call it? Not self-striping, but a changing colored, color changing yarn. And it creates this beautiful effect, which I think looks really interesting. And this is a good one to have a look. If you like the look of this pattern and you use Ravelry, I would recommend having a look at the other projects, because I found it really fun looking at the different color choices other people had made and how that really transforms the look of that garment. And I think you could have a whole lot of fun choosing your colors for that particular garment. The other one that I loved the look of is called the Dust Bunny by Beta Jezek, who is from Hedgehog Fibers, and it's a free pattern that she's done in her lace alpaca boucle, and it's just this lovely. Well, it looks a bit like a shruggy kind of cardigan, but this is a nice, probably for cooler weather. When you want to put something, in the evenings when it cools down a bit, you want something over your shoulders. And you could probably use a nice mohair or what do you call it? I can't think. She's got the alpaca boucle. Anyway, I'm sure there are other different yarns that you could use. I love the look of it. I think that's a kind of garment. It looks very fragile. I'd worry about it a little bit. I think I would definitely wear it. But, I have to accept that I am a bit sensitive to some of these mohairs and alpacas and things like that. So maybe they're not the right garments for me. It's very sad. So like this, for example, is, it definitely has a nice prickle factor for me. But it's hopefully when it's cooler weather, it's not as pronounced. So I'll have to struggle through. But, I keep learning the lesson and then still wanting to knit with these lovely scratchy yarns, but so be it. Other than that, there we go. I think that's all of the knitting stuff I have to talk about, all of the other things I had to talk about as well. I am home alone today. My husband's overseas for work. My daughter's at my parents'. She'll be back later today. So I think I'm going to spend the rest of the day probably tidying up a little bit. Never ends, does it? And hopefully I'll spend a little bit of time by myself knitting as well, which would be good. It is a hot day here in Sydney, and I'm a little bit sensitive now to spending too much time in the sun, so I might hibernate until we get to a bit of twilight and then go out for a nice walk or something. I don't know, we'll see. But for you, wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having a magnificent day, and I wish you lots and lots of beautiful, relaxing knitting time. And until next time, I say goodbye, and I'll see you then. Okay, bye.